Welcome to today's Independent Learning Centre video, which is on a topic that we receive a lot of requests for support about: how to correctly form a sentence. We'll cover what clauses are. These are the basic building blocks of all English sentences, and there are two types, independent and dependent. And we'll look at the sentence types in English, which include simple, compound, and complex. So what is a clause? Like Santa Claus? No. A clause is a subject and a predicate. Predicate is the word we give to the verb and anything else that completes the idea in the clause. Subjects in English are commonly noun phrases, but if you don't have a noun, that's okay. You just need to make sure that your verb doesn't have tense, so you can use verb ing or the infinitive to verb. The main verb phrase after the subject is where you can have a verb with tense, so showing present, past, or future, for example. The author talks about, smoking is becoming, there are all examples of subjects and verbs, but to make an independent clause, we need to add the anything else part to the predicate to complete our idea, and this will allow us to make a simple sentence. So, when we have an independent clause, a subject plus a predicate, that expresses a complete idea, and we put punctuation with it, so a capital letter at the start and something to signal the end of the sentence, for example a full stop or maybe occasionally a semicolon, then we have a simple sentence. For example, the author talks about funding cuts in the UK. Here we've added a noun phrase to the verb to show what the person is talking about. Then we have a complete idea which allows us to make a sentence. Again, you can see that if we're anywhere other than the main verb, we need to make our verb tenseless to show that it's not the main verb. In this case, we've made fund into funding to give more information about the types of cuts. Here, we've added a comparative adjective phrase, more ubiquitous, to complete the idea. Smoking is becoming more ubiquitous. Here we've added a noun phrase to the subject verb there are, which is commonly used to introduce new information. This is a common thesis statement for a cause-effect essay. There are several causes and effects of this phenomenon. Please remember that simple doesn't mean boring and easy. It's actually a very powerful and direct form of sentence with a strong idea. For example, the importance of developing education in schools is undoubtedly a key concern for the future, is a simple sentence, but there's nothing easy about it. But what if I want to talk about two ideas in one sentence? Compound sentences allow me to do this. A compound sentence is two or more equal independent clauses, and we join them with coordinated conjunctions, which are often called fanboys to help you remember them. For and nor, but or yet so. If you add one of these to an independent clause, it allows you to add another independent clause. Sometimes there are also two together. For example, not only but also, whether or, both and, neither nor, or either or. Let's look at some examples. Many people believe smoking is fun, but it is dangerous. Technology has seriously affected how people communicate, and it will continue to do so for a long time. As you can see in the second sentence, it is optional. That's because it replaces technology, and we know that these two clauses are equal. So if I have one of the fanboys joining my two clauses and the subjects are the same, it's okay to delete it in the second clause, like you can see here. The number of people continued to increase throughout the decade and reached a plateau in 2015. But compound sentences can't change around in terms of order. For example, but it is dangerous, many people believe smoking is fun, makes no sense at all. If I want to do this, then I need a complex sentence. This is one or more dependent clauses or phrases connected with an independent clause. What's a dependent clause, I hear you say? It's when we use a linking word, often called a subordinator. Let's look at how that works. I'm happy is a complete idea, so it's an independent clause, and we've also turned it into a simple sentence here. Because I'm happy. Now I've made a dependent clause, and it's no longer complete until I add another independent clause. Because I'm happy, I'm smiling. Now I can have a complete sentence because I've added an independent clause to my dependent clause. I can also change around the order here. I'm smiling because I'm happy. Subordinators can express different relationships like comparison contrast, cause effect, time conditions, and conditional sentences. When they begin the sentence, we need a comma in the middle to separate the subordinate clause from the main clause. We can also link phrases to independent clauses by using linking prepositions. These are called linking prepositions because they either are a preposition or they have a preposition at the end of the phrase. For example, business people need to be aware of cross-cultural differences due to the global nature of business today. Without the linking preposition, I would need to start a new sentence to add another noun phrase. Due to the global nature of business today, business people need to be aware of cultural differences. Here you can see the clauses changed around, and this is totally fine, just like with the other subordinators. You can use verb ing instead of a noun phrase here as well. For example, we originally looked at because I'm happy I'm smiling, or I'm smiling because I'm happy. If I use a linking preposition, I need a noun, but I can use verb ing if I don't have one. For example, due to being happy I'm smiling, or I'm smiling due to being happy. Complex sentences also include relative clauses. Remember that these come directly after the information they refer to. And if the relative pronoun is the subject of the relative clause, you don't need to repeat the subject. In other words, the relative pronoun can take the subject position. Let's see an example of that. Here you can see there's a subject missing in the second subordinate clause because the relative pronoun is replacing it. This means that many people now own more than one device with a computer, which has led to an increase in addiction to technology. Here we've got two subordinate clauses. Let's look now at a sentence from a summary. This one has three subordinate clauses. One introduced by that, a reason introduced by because, and a time phrase introduced by before. First, the writer states that universities are put in a more difficult situation because funding cuts are going to happen before higher fees start being paid. See how these linking words allow us to put a lot of ideas in one sentence to get our message across more clearly. Can you remember the different types of sentences? Simple is one independent clause, in other words, one idea. Compound allows you to join two ideas together by connecting two or more independent clauses with a fanboys or maybe a pair of coordinating conjunctions. Complex is two or more clauses, but one of them is dependent. And we can also connect a dependent phrase to an independent clause. Lastly, you can actually connect these last two into one structure. For example, if I use but and because in one sentence, I've created a compound complex structure. But which one is going to get you the best marks in your writing? Which one is going to impress all your friends and get you through university? That's a trick question. They're all good. It's important that you show that you can control all of them. And all of them are good for different reasons. Simple is very powerful, and it's the best one if you have one clear, strong idea. For example, a main idea. Compound and complex, however, let you connect ideas and show the relationships between them clearly. Let's look at some of those in a summary altogether. You can see in the first sentence, we've used a simple sentence to give our main idea. The second sentence has three subordinate clauses, allowing us to give more detail to the writer's idea. The third sentence has one subordinate clause, And the last sentence is actually compound complex because we have not only but also, and we have subordinate clause with that. Let's hear how they all sound. In the article University Funding Cut by 400 million, the author talks about funding cuts in the UK. First, the writer states that universities are put in a more difficult situation because funding cuts are going to happen before higher fees start being paid. In addition, the author adds that all universities will be negatively affected financially, particularly those already struggling. Thirdly, the author claims that not only will English universities be less able to compete against international ones, but also that the standard and range of their courses will decrease. Can you see how the different sentence types allow us to give our ideas very clearly and also to show which ideas have more strength or more importance than others, and which have more complicated layers? Let's look now at the introduction of an essay and the first two sentences of a first body paragraph. As you can see, we have more simple sentences here because we've got more strong ideas. Our first sentence in the introduction is a simple sentence to introduce our topic. The thesis statement is also a simple sentence, as is the topic sentence of the first body paragraph and our first main idea. We've got a relative clause adding more information and a subordinate clause, as well as in the last sentence, which is an example, a subordinate clause allowing us to introduce a time period, and then a fanboys, which allows us to make a comparison with now and the past. Let's hear that. Since the advent of technological development, computers have become ubiquitous. This means that many people now own more than one device with a computer, which has led to an increase in addiction to technology. There are several causes and effects of this phenomenon. There are two main causes of addiction to technology. The first is the affordability of technological devices. For example, smartphones cost hundreds of dollars when they were first invented, but now they're significantly cheaper. As you can see again, the mixture of sentences is what allows us to connect our ideas really well together. Thank you for watching, and please comment below if you have a sentence of your own that you'd like us to check, or if you have a question about anything in the video.